Hello, my name is Joshua Rodriguez, and today we're going to talk about fair market valuations for self-directed IRAs. Today's agenda includes what a fair market valuation is, third-party valuators, supporting documentation, examples of supporting documentation, how to submit an FMV to Entrust, frequently asked questions, a recap, and next steps. So allow me to introduce myself. My name is, again, Joshua Rodriguez. I'm a technical account representative at the Entrust Group. I've been with Entrust for 5 years. I am the primary contact for technical help with the Entrust Client Portal, and I have 8 years experience in client services. So first, let's go ahead and just do a quick overview of what a fair market valuation is. So a fair market valuation is part of the IRS's reporting requirements to provide the value of an asset annually. So when you submit a fair market valuation, it will basically update the value of that particular asset that you submitted it for. Valuations of the assets in your self-directed account must be reported to the IRS annually. And if you do not submit an FMV, we will just simply use the last known value of the asset and report that on the 5498 and file that with the IRS, of course. So when is a fair market valuation required? So there are 4 instances when it is required. The first instance is when the value of an asset in your Entrust account has changed. So you'll need to go ahead and submit that FMV once a year before the end of the year. That's the first instance. Second instance is when you're taking in-kind distribution of an asset. Third instance is when an asset no longer has value, when it's completely worthless. The fourth instance is when you're converting a traditional IRA to a Roth IRA. When isn't an FMV required? When there has been no change of value of an asset, then you do not need to submit an FMV. If you have precious metals, currencies, any publicly traded assets, you do not need to submit an FMV. So here's a quick list of what assets require an FMV and what assets do not. So real estate, private equity, such as LLCs, limited partnerships, corporations, cryptocurrency. These are all assets that you will need to submit an FMV if the asset value has changed. If you have stocks, bonds, precious metals, mutual funds, undirected cash, and currency, you do not need to submit an FMV. So what do we do with this FMV? So we basically enter that information on the 5498, and then we will file the 5498 with the IRS. Now let's talk about third-party valuators and supporting documentation. So when you submit a fair market valuation, there are 2 options that you can include with it. The first option is you can use a qualified independent third-party valuator to essentially provide the value of that asset. There is a specific section 3 of the fair market valuation form that third-party valuator will need to fill out. These are some reasons why you'll need to use a third-party valuator is if you do not have appropriate supporting documents available for that asset, or if that asset is very complex and it requires the expertise of a specialized appraiser. These are 4 instances when you do not need a third-party valuator. Number 1 is when you have sufficient supporting documentation. For example, end-of-year bank account statement for an LLC. Number 2, determining the value of a publicly traded asset with real-time market data available. Number 3, it's an investment with a fixed value like a promissory note or loan. Number 4, the value of an asset has not changed. You do not need a valuator to state this. A few things to consider regarding third-party valuators and supporting documentation is if you are using a third-party valuator, they will need to complete Section 3 of that fair market valuation form. They will also need to sign and date. If you are using supporting documentation, then you do not necessarily need a third-party valuator to complete Section 3 of that fair market valuation form. There are instances where a third-party valuator will complete Section 3 of the form, and they will also have supporting documentation as well. You can go ahead and submit all of that paperwork to us. Now we're going to go over supporting documentation examples. One thing to note is the IRS actually does not specifically define what is acceptable as far as supporting documentation to establish a fair market value. But here are some examples we have. Regarding real estate, we can accept, number 1, a property tax bill. However, we cannot accept that if you're taking an in-kind distribution of the property. We can only accept it if you're updating the value of the property. We can accept a comparative market analysis, CMA. A licensed real estate professional will have to sign and date the FMV form as well as provide that CMA documentation to us. We can accept a real estate appraisal. We can also accept other documents, such as an opinion letter on company letterhead from a qualified independent third party, and that third party will also have to complete Section 3 of that fair market valuation form as well. LLCs and entities. One thing to note about LLCs and entities is that on the FMV form, you want to make sure you provide the total value of the LLC, including any assets or any holdings it has. In the event that the LLC does have multiple assets within it, we can accept a supporting document for each asset. Let's just say, for example, it has cash and a property. We would need a copy of the year-end bank account statement for the LLC, as well as a property tax bill for the property, showing the value of the property, as well as showing the owner of the property, which should be the LLC. Private equity, such as limited partnerships, corporations. Supporting documentation we can accept is a letter on letterhead from the investment sponsor confirming the asset value. We can also accept a letter from an independent qualified third-party valuator confirming the value as well. For private lending, we will accept an amortization schedule. The amortization schedule should have been provided when you first made the investment. If we did not receive an amortization schedule, then we will report the value of the private lending investment based on payments to principal only, so not including interest payments. If the asset is worthless, then we will accept final bankruptcy and receivership paperwork showing the bankruptcy and receivership has been completed and that the dispersion of all assets have been completed as well. If it does not show this dispersion has been completed, then unfortunately we cannot accept that. We'll also accept a cease and desist order from an entity such as the SEC or a similar state agency. And lastly, if you have a deed of trust, we can accept a trustee's deed as well. How to submit your FMV to Entrust. The first way is via the Entrust Client Portal. I will show you right now. So when you first log in, you want to click on the I want to button. And then from here, you want to click right here, Submit Asset Fair Market Valuation. Then you want to click on New FMV, select the account, select the asset, then here you can go ahead and mark as unchanged, declare it worthless, or update the fair market value. Valuation type, current asset value, we'll just leave it there. Click Next. From here, we want to scroll all the way down. And so this is the current market value. Now here you can decide whether you want to do a full asset price. So you'll provide the total value of the asset. And the new market value will be updated based on the percentage of ownership. Or you can also do it as an owned share price, provide the value of your investment in accordance with the percentage you own. Most clients will just go ahead and just do the full asset value. We'll just type in the new total value. So let's just put 7,000. Percentage of ownership, it's usually 100. Click on Next. And you want to scroll down. And here you can decide if you're using a third-party valuator. You'll provide their information, company name, valuator name, the address, as well as a supporting document from that valuator, which would typically just be a letter on letterhead, which is signed and dated, and it confirms the value of the asset. If you're not using a third-party valuator, then leave that unchecked, and then you'll just go ahead and upload supporting documentation. And once you click on that box, the first box where it says supporting documents with the red star next to it, it will open up a window. In that window, you can select and find on your computer the document that you're looking for. And keep in mind that we only allow PDF files, and the size of the PDF can only be a maximum size of 10 megabytes. So once that's uploaded and you'll see this green bar with the check mark, click Next. And then from there, you're going to scroll down again. Just check this, I read and understand the disclosure above, and click Submit. If everything is in order, it should automatically process anywhere from 3 to 5 business days, sometimes sooner. If it requires a manual review, then it may be longer, but on average, it's about 3 to 5 business days. From here, you can actually select View Details just to review all the information that you entered, confirm all the information entered as well. And that's how you submit an FMV on the online portal. You can also submit an FMV via the Fair Market Valuation PDF form, and this is how it looks like. In the first section, you'll just enter your information, so your legal first and last name, your account number, account type, email address, phone number, address. In section 2, this is where you want to enter the asset information, so the asset description or name. So for instance, if the LLC, you have an LLC in the account and it's called ABC LLC, that's what you would enter there under asset description, ABC LLC. Under asset type, that's just exactly what type of asset it is. If it's a private equity, real estate, or private lending. Percentage of ownership for your investment, typically it's 100. If you are unsure, you can just go ahead and leave that section blank. Current asset value based on percentage of ownership. In most cases, it should match the current total asset value. But instances where, let's say you have a property in your account and your IRA only owns 50% of it, this is where you want to go ahead and put in, let's say the property value is $500,000 and your IRA owns 50% of that property. This is where you want to go ahead and enter $250,000 under current asset value based on percentage of ownership. And then the current total asset value is the total value of the property, which you would put $500,000. Notes section is just if there's anything particular that you need to clarify. If not, you can leave it blank. Section 3 is where that third-party valuator will fill out if you are using a third-party valuator. If not, you can just go ahead and leave that section blank and provide supporting documentation. Section 4 is just your signature and date. It can be emailed, faxed, or mailed. Now we're going to go over frequently asked questions. Why does the IRS need to know the value of my assets on an annual basis? 2 reasons. If you take an in-kind distribution, we need to know the value of that asset. Also, if you do a Roth conversion as well, we need to know the value of that asset. Therefore, we can relay that information on the 1099-R and file that with the IRS. How long is my FMV valid for? 90 days. If it's over 90 days long, you will have to submit a new FMV. Am I required to seek out a qualified third party to value my asset? No, not necessarily. If you are able to provide supporting documentation, then you can just do that and you do not need to seek a qualified third party. Who is considered a disqualified person to my account? According to IRS Publication 590, it is going to be you, your beneficiaries, your spouse, your ascendants, lineal descendants, your lineal descendants, spouses, and fiduciaries. What if there has been no change to the value of my asset? Then you do not need to submit an FMV. We'll just simply report the value that we currently have on file, and we'll go ahead and file that with the IRS. How should the assets in my account be valued? They should be valued at fair market value. Basically, what a knowledgeable, willing, and unpressured buyer would pay to a knowledgeable, willing, and unpressured seller in the market. What happens if I do not turn in my fair market valuation form? Then we will go ahead and just use what we have on file, the last known value that's been provided to us, to file the 5498 and file that with IRS. Is this only a requirement for self-directed accounts? No, all IRA custodians are required to provide a year-end value to the IRS. Non-traditional assets are not easily determined by the market, and so we require individual valuation. Who pays for this valuation? Your account does. If your account does not have sufficient undirected cash to cover the costs, you can make an annual contribution, transfer, or rollover funds from another custodian. I have a single member LLC in my account. Do I need to provide an FMV for each asset that the LLC holds? No. You only need to submit one FMV for the single member LLC, indicating its total value, including all of its assets and holdings. Recap and next steps. So just to recap, this is how you submit it. You can submit it on our Entrust Client Portal, which is the recommended method. And these are some extra screenshots of the online portal. And of course, you have the option to go ahead and email it, fax it, or mail it again. And that is our information right there. So besides submitting the FMV, you can also learn more about FMV in our blog. And of course, you can contact us with any questions. There's our email address, our phone number, and you can also sign up for Entrust newsletter as well. And that covers our fair market valuation presentation. Thank you.